disgusting.
Remakes. Everyone knows what a remake is, and everyone has at least one title in their history with gaming that they would like to see remade. Ranging from visual enhancement to completely overhauling the original game's design, there are a myriad of reasons and ways to revive nostalgic franchises and make them into a definitive version both nostalgic fans and new consumers can enjoy and become immersed in all the same. Currently, we are in sort of a remake renaissance where many companies and developers seem to be looking to pass games in their library and refining them for modern technology. Because of this, some will say the industry is on a downward slope, lacking inspiration to create new ideas and simply looking to the past for a quick cash grab, and you're not wrong, but at least most of them have been good so far. However, as I said before, with all these remake projects, there is always that thought of what if they remade this game that comes after, and while there are many games that I would like remade, there is one in particular that I just cannot fathom why it's taken so long for it to be brought back, and that game is Dino Crisis. Another cult classic hit from Capcom. God damn it, I cannot quit you. The game was at the time a unique, fresh approach to the concept and is a title that paved the way for the survival horror genre thereafter, like its industry-defining father, Resident Evil. However, the DC franchise has been in cryogenic stasis for over 2 decades, and with each passing year, there are always people within the gaming community that plead for this game to be remade, feeling that it never really got its chance to be in the spotlight. Of course, I share the same sentiment, as I have always felt this franchise deserved a resurgence, but I'm also someone to take it a step further. How, you may ask? Well, I think this game not only deserves to get a remake, but also really needs one. Seriously, I'm not kidding. While the game in and of itself is still a solid panic horror title, I feel there are some improvements that can be made to the overall structure and design of the game to not only refine the already solid basis it has, but also enhance the experience, as in many areas the original game is very lacking. Curious? Well, you won't be for much longer. Let's begin talking about why this prehistoric terror deserves and needs to walk the earth once again.
It's Gale. I lost him.
So what's the bad news? Did you run into some guards?
You're not gonna believe this. He was attacked by some kind of dinosaur.
Now that's a good one. So, who was it? Arnie?
This isn't a joke, you idiot. We were just attacked by a big-ass lizard.
Many video games have used dinosaurs as a threat, and they have truly shown how monstrous they can be to deal with in a multitude of titles, but with Dino Crisis, they are at the peak of inducing stress, anxiety, and true horror. Dinosaurs are quite literally an essential part of what makes Dino Crisis the game that it is. I mean, Dino is literally in the title. I honestly don't know why I wrote this, but fuck it, we're here now, so. The presence of these big-ass lizards really enhances the game's tension, as their threatening appearance, vicious strength, and endurance make them a force to be avoided rather than reckoned with. The design of these Jurassic predators truly makes you feel like helpless prey, as they are seemingly always around every corner and they are always eager to wreck your shit, capable of doing lots of damage in one fell bite, or if you survive an attack and believe escape is an option, can give chase, enhancing that feeling of true helplessness and powerlessness. They are obviously the lifeblood that makes this title and franchise what it is, and I think they can be vastly improved upon. For starters, the variety of giant reptiles is scarce, with you only conflicting with 4 to 5 different types of dinosaurs throughout the original game, and that's including what is essentially a recolor of the standard raptor enemy. Though they are effective and serve their purpose, there is still some pining for some more enemy types to really enhance the sense of dread against these seemingly impossible odds. Not to mention that the game doesn't really have much variety in terms of enemy behavior, as they mostly follow the same basic formula of just chase and slash on sight, which brings me to my next point. their intelligence. Shinji Mikami, the progenitor of survival horror, who's responsible for directing both the Resident Evil games and the first Dino Crisis, has been noted saying that he wished the artificial intelligence of the dinosaurs could have been better, wanting them to be smarter and more calculating than just savagely attack, and I 100% agree with this sentiment. The potential in them assessing not only the state of the player character but their surroundings and environment and planning the best strategy to get their next meal is honestly both ways captivating and terrifying, and would greatly affect the game, keeping you on your toes with each new encounter, leaving you hesitant as you ponder how this next creature will challenge your survival instincts. These dinos are formidable, but I think with a little bit more effort we can see why we're lucky that they aren't around anymore. So the gameplay of Dino Crisis falls into your standard survival horror affair, nearly identical to Resident Evil in many areas at the time. You'll find yourself solving puzzles and finding items, all while dealing with your impending threat to escape this terrible nightmare of a decision you made for yourself in coming here. It's a traditional, solid design that is equal parts immersive and atmospheric as it is frustrating and stressful, with each new corridor you navigate throughout your playthrough. However, in Dino Crisis' case, there are many things that are going against it rather than for it. First, let's talk about Ibis Island. Ibis Island is a great setting as it leaves the player equal parts curious and mortified the further you travel into and through it. The research facility that is built upon it emanates that cold, claustrophobic industrial feel, which is enhanced by the state of disarray everything appears to be in, conveying the dire mistake that was made here and the price these scientists paid for tampering with forces beyond their understanding. It honestly would be equal to, if not surpass, the level of its predecessor, the Spencer Mansion, easily, if it weren't so confusing and bland. Feeling lost in a survival horror game can often add to the overall feel of the game and enhance the tension as you progress throughout the game. However, in Dino Crisis' case, it just makes the game feel annoying to traverse through, as there are many cases where you are left wondering where to go or how to get where you need to go, which unfortunately, though you may think it should, the map scarcely helps with. Not to mention the fact that there is not much variety in terms of environments, as you mainly stay within the confines of the research facility, never really allowed to explore the island outside of it, which I believe is a big disservice to the game overall. As such, in a scenario where the game could be remade, I think it would be neat if the developers not only designed the facility to be more easily navigable with or without the map, but also increase the landscape to cover within the game, allowing for more unique locales to excavate and more opportunities for some horrifying encounters with dinosaurs throughout the game. Imagine traversing a path between two parts of the facility and a goddamn triceratops pops out of a bush or something to just ruin your night. Wouldn't that be sick? Next up, let's talk inventory. Regina is far more capable than your favorite STARS member, having more inventory space than both Chris and Jill combined, allowing her to be more than ready for whatever's thrown at her. But it does come with a caveat in managing it. Your inventory can become a bit crowded as you progress throughout the game, and unlike Grandpappy RE, you don't get them item boxes for sorting and managing all the items you find. You have emergency boxes, which essentially function as a substitute for item boxes, as you can find and store items in them, but you also are restricted access from them without the required amount of plugs you need to search for to access them, not to mention that your items are not universally accessible in every box, with each emergency box being an individual storage unit. Some will say you just have to mix items to reduce storage capacity, and yeah, you aren't incorrect, but another thing the game is lacking in is a thorough explanation of the mixing system, which will leave you skeptical about mixing items since you are not fully aware what mixtures lead to what. I think a solution in a new title would be to allow emergency boxes to be universal in terms of item storage and management, and to supplement for that change, you can increase the number of plugs to find throughout the facility, leaving the difficulty of finding, storing, and managing items at the full discretion of the player. For the mixing system, I feel the solution is just to limit the amount of items with mixing potential by turning some mixing items into just regular items you can find within the game, like hemostats or medkits. This will allow for the mixing mechanic to be more feasible and easier to understand, and allow for more focus on other aspects that can enhance the kit of your player character. Maybe have the mixing mechanic more attributed to ammunition effects, much like how they already do with creating darts. I don't know. Finally, there's combat. Simple. Allow for more ways to evade dinosaurs rather than having to fight them head on. The game does fine with that in all honesty, with the inclusion of things like the previously mentioned darts and the laser activated force fields strewn throughout the facility. However, just because it's fine the way it is, don't mean it can't be added to, which is why I believe it would be so cool to add more ways to battle and or avoid fights with dinos throughout the game. Have more environmental interactions allowing for distractions like noises or scents to throw off predators, or having environmental hazards you can trigger that can negate the need for combat entirely. And if all those fail, give Regina a timed tactical dodge much like how Jill has in RE3 Remake. It would be perfect in scenarios where you have no means to neutralize the enemy, allowing you to slip past enemies in a way that still requires relative skill, with timing and precision being key. All in all, I believe that in the case of a remake, a new Dino Crisis really could be a larger than life experience if they refine the gameplay from its prehistoric state. Oh, I forgot Control, not Tank. There you go. The story of Dino Crisis is really not all that complicated. You are Regina, a secret operation raid team agent sent with 3 fellow agents. 2 fellow agents to find and extract the thought to be dead mad scientist from a secret research facility after another fellow agent tried to infiltrate the facility for info and couldn't sort things out. Get it? Cause secret operation raid. Wait, don't leave. I apologize for my actions. Thus, you get there, you find out there's dinos. Fuck that scientist. We gotta get the hell off of this island now. I know that some may think I am butchering the plot a little bit, and well, I am in a way, but am I really? When it comes down to it, that's ultimately the semblance of the plot that is presented to you, and while it is at least put together in a way that keeps you charmed and immersed, I cannot help but feel there is more potential in fleshing out the world and characters a bit more in accordance with the plot. I feel that learning more about the past lives of the characters that are present, like Regina, Gale, Rick, and especially Dr. Kirk, would serve to strengthen the narrative and allow the player to become a bit more invested in the overarching plotline. Would it not be interesting to learn more about Regina and how she became an agent, or discover more about the faked death of Dr. Kirk and the genesis of his third energy technology, bland name by the way? I think it would serve the narrative well to supply more info on these characters, allowing us to have a stronger connection to them and their mission, as well as give us a purview of the corruption present in the world of Dino Crisis. I also think it would serve the narrative to add some more characters to the story. One of the things I loved about the later Resident Evil games, after the first, was having the perspective of not only the player characters but also other survivors who were just as unprepared for the impending outbreak as you were. It allowed for some genuinely haunting perspectives to be conveyed, which created an indistinct understanding of how the outbreak started and how bad things were for those survivors who were unaware of the horror that had come for them out of nowhere before their fates were sealed. I think having more scientists within the story, preferably not immediately a dev story yet, would serve to convey more about the team under Dr. Kirk, the beginning of the end for the facility, and the carnage that ensued with the appearance of the dinosaurs before you got there, creating a new perspective for the player and enhancing the horror as you survey the destruction in the aftermath. I'm not a professional writer yet, but I do know that the Crisis and Dino Crisis can be enhanced with just a bit more effort put into the pen that made it. Speaking of Crisis, there is one more thing that I believe is the sole problem and reason why we have not seen DC for a long time, and that is one simple statement: Dino Crisis has an identity crisis. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's first look at the history of the franchise. After the first game did very well and was positively received, Capcom moved forward creating a sequel calling it What Else? Dino Crisis 2. However, Mikami did not return to direct 2, with it instead being directed by another Capcom developer, Shu Takumi, who, if you don't know who he is, Ace Attorney. While the sequel was received well like the previous game, it didn't have the same feel of Dino Crisis 1, changing from survival horror to more of an action shooter with some survival horror elements, which, while fun for some, was a bit of a letdown for me personally, as I found the focus on action to make the concept significantly duller and more repetitive. Not to mention that the narrative is just
What are you doing? Stop it. What's the matter?
weird. Still a good game, but not what I identify as Dino Crisis. There was a light gun game released for the PS2 thereafter called Dino Stalker, which I have never played, don't want to play, and never will play, because it's basically Resident Evil Survivor 3, which if you have never experienced RE Survivor, don't. And finally, there's Dino Crisis 3, which, I mean, do we really need to clarify the dissociative identity disorder that is this game? Just look at this game and you can see there was no thought given to what this title should be in relation to the previous titles. They stopped caring completely. In the words of the great scientist Albert Einstein, game's a piece of shit, don't play it. So as you can see, the franchise kind of lost itself as it went on, and then just disappeared after that point, with many cult fans of the series wondering what would be next for the franchise. Fast forward to 2020 and we received news that Capcom had been working on a new Dino Crisis game, but had scrapped the project entirely for unknown reasons. Nobody knew if it was a remake or a completely new game, but nonetheless the series was basically sentenced to extinction at that point. Until this year. In July of this year, Capcom released a new title called EXO Primal. The game is an online-focused, team-based third-person action game that has you fighting with your party against swarms of dinosaurs competing to survive in these so-called war games run by an advanced rogue AI named Leviathan. The game in and of itself is pretty good fun with friends and is a solid team-based action title, but that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how I wholeheartedly believe that EXO Primal was built on the fossil that was initially going to be a new Dino Crisis game. Don't believe me? Let's run down the list. Your player character called Ace crash lands with his exosuit squad called the Hammerheads on an island called Bikitoa Island when the game begins. Your group is literally Sword and it's Ibis Island. One of the characters on your team is a woman named Majesty. She's literally Regina, Jill, and Black Widow fused together for some reason. When you are pulled into war games by Leviathan, you are transported via this vortex portal system to the past where you combat waves of dinos who are also summoned by those same vortexes. It's third energy, and excluding the newer additions and variants, the types of dinosaurs you're fighting and utilizing within the war games are shockingly identical to the dinosaurs you've seen in previous DC titles. Of course they look a lot better, but you get my point. EXO Primal was clearly supposed to be a new Dino Crisis game at one point in time, but the developers, I'd like to think, saw that they were making decisions that could be perceived as a complete departure from what people thought the series to be and decided to turn it into a completely new game entirely. If you look at the framework of the game, it is clear that there were plans on paper to make a multiplayer-oriented Dino Crisis game that would be comparable to the structure of Dino Crisis 2, being more focused on action than its survival horror origin, much like the sequel to the past, which makes sense as their recent multiplayer outings have been very well received by Capcom enthusiasts and gamers in general. I like to think the game would have aimed to be a hybrid of Dino Crisis 2 and the Lost Planet series of games, and while I think that sounds great from a conceptual standpoint, I am honestly glad they did not move to make this into a new Dino Crisis. Why? Well, because I truly feel there is more potential in a new Dino Crisis game oriented around survival horror rather than action. I legitimately feel that Capcom didn't and doesn't see the true potential that lies beneath the game's surface and how much they can do with this franchise in a reboot adopting some design philosophies and ideas from the Resident Evil remakes that we've recently shown themselves to be more than successful at refining and revitalizing their own franchise. Some people will say that Dino Crisis is just Resident Evil with dinosaurs as opposed to zombies, and I think that is a completely ignorant way of looking at it. While they are extremely similar due to things that they would inevitably be compared with, I think that Dino Crisis yearned to be more of a hyperactive horror experience with a faster pace than Resident Evil, and I think that one factor among many others is something that does and would greatly benefit it alongside many other tweaks and additions in a remake. I stand by my belief that in the right hands and approached the right way, Dino Crisis could be revived and be the terror from our past that it was always meant to be. Okay, I promise I'm done talking about Capcom games for a while. We'll switch it up. Okay, so in 1999, Capcom released a game called Power Stone. What is up, A1? Adamant here, and I just wanted to say thanks for watching the video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I know there was quite a delay on this one since the last vid, and all I can say is 2023 end months were just very distracting for both good and bad reasons, and it just took time and focus away from this, to be honest. But I'm back, and I'm ready to get back to making more videos. In fact, not making any promises on upload date or schedule, but there are already several videos in the pipeline that I want to do, and I hope you look forward to them. I also wanted to mention that conveniently at the time of this upload, Capcom is doing a fan survey thing that asks you a lot of interesting things like your favorite game and what franchises you would like to see get new titles or even remade from their library of IPs. I did it, and of course I put Dino Crisis in most if not all of my answers regarding new titles. It's nothing but just a survey for Capcom fans that's just probably in good fun, but irregardless, I urge you to go and do the survey if you like and can, as if you're someone like me who would really like to see DC return, this could potentially turn some execs' heads to see that there's promise and money in a remake or a new title. But anyways, that's pretty much all I needed to say, so leave a like if you enjoyed this video, comment down below what you'd like to see in a Dino Crisis remake if I didn't mention anything, or if you agree or disagree with me. I am always open to different opinions. Subscribe and join the A1, that's the best way to keep up with all the stuff going on here, and that's a wrap from me. I'm Adamant, Stay adamant. See you next time.